Picked one up. We'll just have formulas on it. Okay. Okay, so mainly we're going to review how to solve formulas. On the first page, I just gave you examples of formulas. I'm not going to go over that, but formulas, of course, are everywhere in science and economics and all kinds of things. These formulas right here, I mean, they can get kind of complicated too. Like if you get a loan on your car or your house, that's the formula that's used. It's even got a negative exponent in it. Remember, we talked just briefly about negative exponents. That shows up in the loan formula. If you're going to do some engineering, this is like resistance, stuff like that. Look at all those fractions. There's formulas everywhere. So like engineering students, if you look at an engineering book, it looks like a math book. It's got math everywhere. Okay? If you're working with electric circuits, you got to solve lots of math problems. Okay? So what I'm going to try to do is just kind of take you through basic formula solving before we get to 6.6, because it'll help you understand the first part of 6.6 better. So let's start with just a couple of simple examples. Like you have distance equals rate times time. You guys already know that. We did that formula in a word problem before. If I say solve for R, what that means is you want R to be by itself. And the reason I think sometimes students don't do these problems well is because they don't understand equation solving. Although they can solve equations okay, they don't understand it. So how do you get rid of that t? That's the thing. T has to go away.
Divide both sides by t.
How do you know to divide by t? Because it's multiplication, and you undo multiplication by dividing. And that's the key to doing what we're going to do, is to understand your undoing operations. Okay, so what you've done is you've rearranged this formula so it says R equals distance over t, like that. That's a real simple formula that you do. Okay, this next one, this is a formula for nothing. I just made this up. Okay, but it's the same concept. If you want z to be by itself, you don't touch z. What needs to go away? X and w. How do you make x and w go away? You divide by it. Why do you divide? Because you're undoing multiplication. That's what I'm going to keep repeating, because that's what you have to understand. I think that's what students don't understand. Okay, those divide out. Okay, so what you would end up having is w equals y over x. Hold on. No, z. Well, I'm making all kinds of mistakes today. There's something wrong with me. Okay, so we got that. That's the answer. Okay. All right, now we're going to focus on a couple of different levels of these things as we go. Let's look at P equals A plus B plus C. Now, this is what I recommend. You don't have to do this because it's going to depend on, you may do fine with these problems just kind of in your head. But we're solving for A. So what do you need to get rid of? B and C. How do you get rid of add B? Subtract B. How do you get rid of add C? See, I'm emphasizing the operation. Okay, that's what you got to understand. So yeah, you're going to subtract B, subtract C. You could even move to the other side like that, and when you do that, A is now going to be isolated like it needs to be. Then you have P, and then you subtracted B minus C like that, so that would be the answer like that. So I undid adding by subtracting. That's what you got to do, is focus totally on the operations. Okay? Now, this problem right here, before I do this problem, and you may be able to do this just fine, I just want to point out that you've done this same kind of thing all semester, and you don't need to necessarily write this down. I just want to pretend like we had, instead of 2L, let's just say we had just like a 2 there. Okay, if you were going to solve this equation, how do you get rid of this 2? Subtract. You subtract because it's being added. So you'd subtract 2 from both sides. That would give 18 equals 2W. Okay, how do you get rid of the 2 in front of W? You divide. Okay, the thing is, when you start having more letters, it's still the same thing. When we do this problem, I'm not doing anything different. Okay, the idea is I need to get rid of 2L. And think of 2L as just one big number, because it is one big number. How do you get rid of 2L? You subtract it. Why? Because it's added. See, there's an addition to the side of it. So what you're going to do is subtract 2L from both sides. Okay? That'll cross that out. That's going to give 2W equals P minus 2L. Now, you can't put P minus 2L together because they're unlike terms. Okay? I see students do it all the time. How do you get rid of the 2 in front of W? And why do you divide? Because you're undoing multiplication. Okay? You got to learn it that way. Okay? You're going to get sick of me saying that. I don't care, because you have to understand what operations are. Okay? And believe me, I know that this is a problem area for lots and lots of students. And if you're going to go to science, your teacher will just expect you to already know how to do this, so you want to be really solid with this. Okay? All right, any questions so far? Okay, because these things are going to get a lot harder when we get to 6.6. Okay? Now with this one, okay, what would you think in general you would want to do with that P? Just from your background, what do you think you would do? You could. What else? We've been doing this all semester. What if you had this? What if you had 20 equals 10 times 1 plus 2R, and I wanted you to find R? What would you probably do? Yeah, you'd probably distribute, right? Now, you said divide by P. That's correct. You could start the problem that way. There's 2 approaches on this problem, so I'm going to do a distributive property. So P times 1 is P, and then P times NR is PNR. Okay, you don't know what they are, so you just write it that way. Okay. Now, I always tell students to do this. I think this helps students a lot, because a lot of times students don't know how to start. The idea is you want R to be by itself. So what do you get rid of? You get rid of a P, and then you get rid of a PN. Okay, and all you got to know is how to undo the operations. How do you get rid of the P? Subtract, because it's added. Okay, so you're going to subtract P from both sides, just in that first step like that. So then you would have A minus P. That's going to cross out, leaving PNR like that. Okay, one more step and I'm done. I got to get rid of PN. How do you do that? You divide, because you're undoing multiplication. It's always opposite of the operation, so you're going to divide both sides by PN, like that. Okay? Then when that divides out, you're done, so you would have R equals A minus P over PN, like that. Okay? Problem done. Okay? So I'm going to have you go to the next page and do some problems. I'll walk around and just kind of see if you're... Okay? So let's just check them real quick and see if we got them. Okay, so I equals PRT. I do think it helps students. You don't have to do this, but if you're learning this, just circle the variable. And you get rid of RT. Why do you divide by RT? I'm going to keep asking that question. Because you're undoing multiplication. Okay, you have to get that and understand that. Otherwise, you're just going to mimic what the teacher does and you'll forget it. Okay, so you should have got P equals I over RT. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Next problem, we have A equals 3x minus 4y. Okay, we're going to solve for x. Okay, so when I do this, you've got to get rid of a 4y and a 3. How do you get rid of subtracting 4y? Adding. You add 4y. So you're solving an equation just like you've done all semester, except now you got more than one letter in it. That's the only difference. Okay, that's step 1. Now, you got to get rid of 3. How do you do that? Divide by 3. Okay, because you are undoing multiplication. Okay, so the answer you should have got on this was x equals a plus 4y all over 3, like that. Okay, right? And as they get more complicated, that's sometimes where students have mistakes. Usually nobody has any trouble with this one. On this one, you get rid of b by doing what? You divide by b because you're undoing multiplication, okay? Okay, it's all about the operation. The operation tells you what to do, see, okay? Now, this one, I'm going to do this actually in 2 different ways because some of you did this one way and the other way, and you could have different looking answers, but they're both right. Most of you did a distributive property, so b times 1 is b. b times h is bh, so you'd have that. Okay, now if you're going to solve for h, Well, you got to get rid of these two numbers. So if you get rid of this number's added. So how do you get rid of this b? You subtract. Okay, it's the only way to get rid of it. Okay, so this is going to be p minus b equals bh. Okay, now how do you get rid of b? You divide because it's multiplied. Okay, so we do that, then you're done with the problem. So you'd have h equals p minus b over b like that. That's what most of you have. Now, I don't know if anybody did this. I think maybe I saw one person or two people do this. But you could also, in this problem, you could divide by b. Why could you do that? Because it's being multiplied, okay? If anybody did that, that's perfectly acceptable. Then you would have p over b equals 1 plus h, right? Now, how do you get rid of 1? You subtract it because it's added, okay? So you could do this. So you would get a different looking answer. You would get p over b minus 1 equals h. Those two answers are the same. Is that what you got? That's what I thought you did, and that's fine. And they're both the same. The reason they're both the same is if you look at this, okay, don't you see a p over b there? How about this? What's b over b? 1. Okay, it's the same. Okay, the answers look different, but I promise you they're both right. Okay, all right. All right, let's go to 10. These are, you have to do these. I think number 10 is about similar to what we were doing. So if we start this, S equals 2 pi r h plus 2 pi r squared. This is a surface area formula, I think is what it is. Okay, so we're going to get h by itself. Okay, so when you get more stuff in the problems, it seems that it confuses students more. The way I look at this problem is, this is just one big number. Okay, it's just one big thing. So how are you going to get rid of it? You're going to subtract it. Okay, you pay attention to the operation. Okay, and you can do this step in your head if you want to. So I'm going to subtract 2 pi r squared from both sides. Okay, that's going to leave me on the left side with s minus 2 pi r squared equals 2 pi r h. Okay, like that. Okay. Now, again, if you're stuck, we'll circle what I'm wanting you to get by itself. What do you get rid of? 2 pi r. How do you do it? You divide. Okay. Because you're undoing multiplication again. Okay. Problem done. Okay. H is now by itself. So you would have h equals s minus 2 pi r squared all over 2 pi r like that. Okay? No, what do you want to do? I was afraid somebody was going to say that at some point in time in class. Okay? We've talked about that. That's actually, I'm glad you pointed that out because I was kind of thinking of that as I was teaching it. Why can you not cross out the 2 pi's? Good, you have a subtract. So you corrected yourself, so I'll forgive you, okay? All right, so remember, you can't do that unless it was like this. If it was s times 2 pi r squared over 2 pi r, yeah, then you can cross it out. Okay, but once you put a minus sign, you can't do it anymore. Okay? Okay, now I'm going to show you something a little bit different on number 11. I think what most students would do, and it's not incorrect, by the way, is if you solved for h, probably what most students are going to do is do this. Okay, if anybody tried to work the problem out, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what you did. I don't like that answer very much, though. It's kind of sloppy. It's got a fraction and a fraction. I don't like it very much. So what I'm going to do is apply something that you've certainly learned how to do before, is I'm going to get rid of fractions. That's what we just did on 6.5 is get rid of fractions. So if you want to get rid of 2, how do you get rid of 2? Exactly, you multiply by 2. Okay, both sides. Okay, you're going to be left with 2a now equals bh. Isn't that a better approach? Now we don't have any fractions to worry about. Now if I'm going to solve for h, what do? I divide by b, and I get a much cleaner, more attractive looking answer, 2a over b, like that. By the way, they're the same answer, though. Do you have any idea why? Well, if you divide by a half, what are you really doing? You're multiplying by 2. So see, dividing by half is the same as multiplying by 2. Same answer, that's just better. Okay. Okay, now let's see. I want to go ahead. Let's go ahead and do our break right now. And so the thing that you want to kind of get solid with on these problems is if your formula has a fraction in it, you want to get rid of it, because that's what we're going to be doing in 6.6 here in a few minutes. So what you want to do is get rid of the 2. How do you get rid of the 2? You multiply both sides by 2. So you just kind of put the 2 over 1 in like that. The left side's now going to be 2a. Now that's going to be h times b1 plus b2. And this problem you're trying to solve for b1. So you actually have a couple of ways you can do this. I'm just going to do this one way. You could do a distributive property, or you could divide by h. You would get a little bit different answer. So let's just, on this one, let's just divide by h this time. Okay, you can do that. Okay, so we can divide both sides by h. So we'd have 2a over h is equal to b1 plus b2. Okay, so I got rid of my fraction, and I divided by h. Okay, one more step and I'm done. What do I do? Subtract b2, right. Okay, because you're trying to get rid of the b2. Since it's added, you're going to subtract it. Okay, like that. So you're going to end up having as an answer, one way to answer would be b1 equals 2a over h minus b2. Okay, so you could do that. Okay.
B2 can't be in the numerator of that.
Not of the b2. No, because that's separate. If you did the problem this way, when you're subtracting b2, it's going to be separate. Now, you could put it over 1 and get a common denominator and put it together that way if you wanted to. But the idea with this is get rid of the fraction, okay? Get rid of the h, get rid of the b2. That's one way to do the problem. There's always more than one way to do these problems, okay? All right, I just want to kind of give you some ideas. So the next one, you have 9/5 C plus 32. This is the formula that converts Celsius temperature to Fahrenheit. So the way I would probably go about doing this, there's more than one way to do this. But what I'm going to do is you could multiply by 5 to get rid of 5. That would be one choice. You could get rid of the 32. And that's what I'm going to do. You can always get usually about 2 equivalent answers that look different depending on how you approach the problem. So that's kind of up to you. So what I'm going to do this time is just this way. So I'm going to have f minus 32 equals 9/5 times c. Okay, and what we're going to try to do is get c by itself. Okay, so there's one way to do this in one step. How do you get rid of the 5? We don't want the 5 to be there, so what do? You could multiply both sides by 5. Okay, and you'd have to multiply that whole side by 5 like that. How do you get rid of a 9? Divide. You divide, exactly. So you could multiply by a reciprocal, like that, all in one step. That's probably the fastest and most efficient way to do that, is you just get rid of that and get rid of that by multiplying by 5/9. Okay, we haven't done that much in this class, but you could do that, and then you would always see, like if you went to the internet and wanted to find how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, you would always see the formula written like that. And that's one way to do it, okay? So what I did is I multiplied by 5/9. See, if you have a 9/5, if you multiply by the reciprocal, it gives 1, doesn't it? It gets rid of it. So that's the simplest way to do it. It's like that, okay? There's always more than one way to do that, but you could certainly finish it that way, okay? So I'm going to let you just try the next 3 problems, and then we'll move on to 6.6. And I hope this has given you enough here. Okay, so the very first problem, okay, if you wanted to get rid of the fraction, how would you do that? Multiply by 3. That's what I would do. I think if you got a fraction, just get rid of it. So the best way to start the problem is like that. Okay, that's going to give 3v equals b times h. Okay, now how do you get h by itself? You divide by b. Okay, so now if we go through and divide by b, that would be the best answer to the problem in the simplest form, would be h equals 3v over b. Okay, so we've learned how to get rid of fractions. That's what you're doing on these problems. Okay, And that's what you're going to do in 6.6. Okay, now there's probably, I can think of 2 possible ways that you probably could have started this problem. I could actually think of 3, but here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to just multiply by 3 to get rid of the fraction. How many people did that? Okay, did anybody multiply by the reciprocal? That's what I thought. That's say I can read minds. Okay, so the idea is if you did it this way, then you would have 3a equals 2lw, okay, just by doing that one step. Okay, that crosses out the 3's. Now if you're going to get L by itself, what do you need to do? Divide by 2w, right? Okay, that would be one way, so that would get L by itself. So one acceptable answer would be L equals 3 over 2w. That's probably the best way to do that problem, is not worry about the 2 in the beginning of the problem, just worry about the 3 and get rid of it. Okay, now if anybody multiplied by the reciprocal, which is not wrong to do that, by the way, here's what you would end up getting. You would have 3 halves a, if you did that, and then on this side you would end up with LW. Okay, if you do it this way, you're going to end up with a kind of a messy answer, but it'll be okay. It'll be equivalent to mine. So if you're getting L by itself, you could divide by W, and if you did that, you would get L equals 3 halves A over W. And at this stage, I wouldn't fuss too much about this in this level of a class, but you can have that answer. Did anybody do it that way? Okay, you got the same answer? You guys get the same answer? Okay, so you're probably best off on these problems in general to just worry about the denominator and getting rid of it. Just the denominator, okay? But either way is okay, all right? Now the next one, how did you start the problem?
Multiply by 4.
Multiply by 4, exactly. Okay, multiply by 4. And by doing that, you're going to get rid of the fraction. So that's going to give 4p here equals h times b plus c. Now I'm going to take this in 2 directions because you have 2 choices at this point, and I want to just kind of see who did what. Okay, did anybody just divide by h? That's fine. That's probably the fastest way to get your answer, by the way. It's just divide by h. Then you would have 4p over h equals b plus c. And if you're solving for c, what's the last step? Subtract b. So you could subtract b from both sides. And if you did that, you would have 4p over h minus b equals c. So that would be one answer. How many people got that? Okay, that's good. That's a nice approach. How many people did a distributive property? Okay, that's good. If you did something else other than that, I'd like to know what you did, because that's about the only possibilities that you have. So you have HB plus HC. That's a valid approach to the problem. You're getting C by itself. So you got to get rid of HB. Okay, so we're going to multiply or subtract HB from both sides. That would give 4P, I think that's supposed to be an HB, minus HB equals HC. Then what do you do? Divide by H. So I'll take that answer also. And they're the same. And you want to make sure that you understand why they're the same. Look at this. 4P over H. See? HB over H. What is HB over H? Because an H would cross out, you'd have a B. Okay, same thing. Okay, they're the same answer. Okay, they're both right. Okay, so you can go a couple of different directions when you're working these problems out then. Okay, all right. Now that's all we're going to do on that section.